Hello again. This is Ben Hitchcock Cross talking to you today for Deliberate Indifference, Wisconsin. I was watching my analytics page like a good little creator, and I saw that many of the audience out there was watching videos related to sort of the moments when corrupt cops realize that their future is about to change. And I watched some of those videos, and I saw that look on some of their faces. And I just want to contrast that moment, sort of when good cops realize that there really is no such thing as good or evil. And that happens. I come across that a lot in my practice, or at least often enough. And what I mean by that is so much of what police officers do involves assisting or exercising discretion in determining sort of what's arrestable or what's not arrestable. And another way to look at that is sort of what's on the right side of conduct and what's on the wrong side of conduct. Okay. Now, judges also take part in that. That is becomes part of what they do and who they are, especially after a long career. I think that's one of the reasons, obviously, why we, as the people who they exercise that control over, get so indignant when they don't follow the rules, when they have special rules for themselves, when they're, hypocritically applying those powers, I think, or even selfishly applying those powers. I think we all get rightfully upset. So I just want to, again, we're going to contrast that moment there with, quote unquote, good cops, meaning those who are extremely straight and who are bent on enforcing the rules. And bent probably not the right word, but who are extra motivated to enforce the rules. As far as I understand, they've done a lot of studies on, what makes good cops good and what makes bad cops bad. And it seems like a lot of the same personality types that are, drawn towards law enforcement are the same kind of personality types that, like to have rigid rules, like to be able to say this thing is in and this thing is out. We also see, I think, from those kind of studies that also the line between, the criminal personality and the police personality isn't that clear as they may like. And I certainly wouldn't be that comfortable with that, that kind of results there, that kind of information rolling around in the back of my head there, if I was engaged in that kind of work. And I would be particularly concerned about, is my ability to say what's right and what's wrong, am I right in that, and finding ways to be able to justify that. In the same way, I think that I, Ben Hitchcock Cross here, as part of my job in discrimination, go out of my way to not judge my clients, and that really does turn me into many times in my professional capacity. So many things are relative there that that bleeds into my thinking outside of that as well. And much of what I do that is for self-preservation, if not anything else. So we just have to keep that in mind of what who we're looking at here. So I then want to take us to a moment. Here's a joke I frequently bring up at parties. But in law school, I took a lot of criminal classes. I really liked that professor, and I took as many classes as she had available. Many of the people who were in those criminal classes were, junior prosecutors, or even, in fact, ex-police officers who were now going to law school. One of the things that let's say we would do these things called hypothetical fact patterns. And some professor would write it out, basically copied off some case. Maybe they would change the names to people in some novel or popular TV show or something along those lines. And there would be, as they would say, enough meat in the facts for both sides, the defense and the prosecutor, to have something to go to argue from. That's really what the goal was. It was a stem. So, but I oftentimes remarked at how certain the prosecutors were that certain facts in this hypothetical fact pattern were clear indications that this person was not only guilty, but did it on purpose. And, at least coming from my role in that class as always being on the defense, I certainly saw it the other way, whereas, how do we know that this person is not rushing off to, deliver a baby? You assume that they're robbing a bank, getting away from a bank robbery. Well, what about the assumption that they're, a good Samaritan and have to go running to help somebody, right? So we can look at the same facts and come up with totally different conclusions. But for me, what was so astounding was how absolutely certain the junior prosecutors were that this meant that this person was guilty. Again, keeping in mind that these were completely hypothetical fact situations that we would never really be able to determine what the case was, which was the whole point. So I developed this sort of joke on those people where I would lean over to the budding prosecutor and look into their eyes and say, "There's no such thing as good and evil." And their little brains, or big brains as the case may be, was soon within about 2 or 3 minutes would just kind of start to explode. And even if class was going on or whatever else, they could not resist but to say, I don't know why I always find that funny, but yeah. So this is a very similar moment, I guess, as when I have is police officers, law enforcement, sheriff's deputies, all these people who are used to being, in. And then especially this happens in smaller towns, with sort of like sergeants, lieutenants, and above, that they're in. And then all of a sudden, they say, "Hey, wait, I'm not going to go along with what the mayor wants." Or, "Hey, wait, there's the law is how we're supposed to select these things. And I know you guys are just selecting them based on backroom conversations." Or, "Hey, this police chief is running amok and retaliating against everyone." Usually it's not the police chief. Usually it's the city manager, by the way. And I don't just say that because of what's going on in Amory. I say that because usually it's the city manager. And maybe the police chief is in cahoots with the city manager. But if there's a bad actor, someone who's over-enthused with their power in a smaller town or village or city in the state of Wisconsin, it's going to be village or city, they are almost inevitably the manager or administrator, meaning the highest ranked non-elected employee. Okay. So that is really, again, I can't tell you how many times they have come to me with this realization that they're no longer in and that they're getting retaliated against. And let's say I think it's at least a 6-month journey from being on the inside of a police department, good cop, bad cop. I don't know so much about bad cops, but again, honest actors, law enforcement officials who are then targeted for retaliation by their superiors. I can tell you that takes at least 6 months to sort of work your brain through what that is and what that means. So, yeah, it's. I think a lot of the reason that we put up these constructs in our minds about this is what's right and this is what's wrong, or we're always right here on the blue team and, everybody else is sort of our enemy, or however many ways that they phrase it, serve and protect. Uh, you know, when the rubber hits the road, and um, either you don't play along or in some way you're being called on to do something that you don't believe is legal or ethical or whatever, and you're not going along with that, then it's my experience that Team Blue will come down on you in one way or the other. And I think Amory case couldn't be a better example of that. And that it's not just an employment retaliation for these employees, for these law enforcement officers. It's also really a destruction of their whole worldview. So I do want to again compare corrupt cop realizing that they're caught going to jail. That also was a destruction of their whole worldview, because again, they're on Team Blue and they're about to be removed. So, before that, whatever their corruption was, in their mind is my guess that they conceived that to be part of the mission. There was some way that they, let's say, in their mind accepted that this was not what you and I would think of as corruption. It was something else. So that there is sort of the mental gymnastics we play, and when we get confronted with reality sometimes, it can cause a look like we've seen there in those videos. So thank you very much for sticking with us. We'll keep you informed.